Call the order to order the Gardner zoning board. Before we begin tonight's public hearing, I would like to familiarize you with some of the ground rules on how we conduct the hearing. In Gardner, 4 members out of 5 of the zoning board of appeals must be present to conduct a legal hearing. Applications will normally be heard in the sequence in which they appear in the public notice. The board is under no obligation to adhere to this sequence. All hearings shall be open to the public, and no person shall be excluded unless he or she is considered to be a hindrance to the workings of the board. An applicant may appear on his or her own behalf or be represented by an agent or attorney. The applicant or his or her representative shall present the case to the board. Representatives of the city shall be heard. The abutters to the property present shall be heard. Those in opposition to the application shall be heard. Members of the board who are hearing the case may direct appropriate questions during the hearing. The board must render its decision regarding variance requests within 100 days after the application was duly filed in the office of the city clerk. The board regarding special permits must conduct a public hearing within 65 days after the application was filed in the office of the city clerk. The board must render its decision regarding special permits within 90 days after the closing of the public hearing. All 4 members out of 5 of the board must vote in favor of a variance or special permit for it to be granted and approved. The right to appeal against the decision of the board is provided for in Chapter 48 of the Zoning Act. The information is available in the office of the city clerk. No variance or special permit or any extension, modification, or renewal thereof shall take effect until notification from the city clerk that the 20 days have elapsed after the decision has been filed in that office, and no appeal have been filed is recorded in the registry of deeds for the county or the district. The board requests that each person identify himself or herself as the name and address before addressing the board. Sitting on tonight's hearing, to my right is Lori Wilcott. To my left, Richard Hanks. And to my far left, I'm getting confused here with the voice, is David Antea.
And your chairman?
Acting Chairman Mel Cornett. This meeting will be taped and videotaped. Does anyone object to the videotaping? The board requests that all cell phones be silenced to prevent any interruptions during the meeting. Which means I better do that. Okay, the first case for the board tonight is case number 2022-01-01, and it's an update from Jonathan Babachi on 163-165 Pine Street. Mr. Babachi, or agent or attorney.
Board members.
Good evening.
Attorney Christine Tree, agent for the permit holder. And if the monitors could be turned on, I'm going to try to project the PowerPoint for this evening, very brief, as an update. I know this is, I believe, Mr. Hank's first meeting, though, of course, a very experienced person. And just to update Mr. Hanks, this is a special permit that was issued back in 2022 for an 8-family building to be renovated. The special permit was for the 8-family use. This was a structure that suffered a fire, as you can see from the picture up there. The renovation on the structure was completed. We do have some outstanding inspection issues, which I'll update you on. And then the issue that the board has brought before it for review is completion of the special permit conditions, particularly the construction of a parking lot in the rear of the property. The parking lot was constructed. The person who constructed it shorted the parking lot, and we are now in the position of having to extend the parking lot to the original length approved in the special permit. So, you've all received a copy of the PowerPoint and the two documents that we have submitted. This is the approved plan for parking, and we need to construct to that plan. At the last meeting, the chair had asked that we do sort of a milestone and a check off and a map to completion, and that we then update the board on our progress. So at the last meeting, we had provided proof that we had engaged the design firm, and we expected that the plan would be issued by 9/13. It was issued by 9/5, which was great. We got a little bit ahead of the game there. And a copy of the plan by Peter Reynolds and Mackenzie Engineering has been submitted to you.
Okay.
That plan was submitted to the building department on a building permit application for the wall. And that application was submitted on 9/9/2024 with the plan. And I was able to, Mariella has very nicely instructed me on the use of OpenGov in Gardner. So I can see the application there. I did speak to the building department this afternoon to just get a status update on where that is. With this submission of the permit application 9/9, the building department has 30 days to respond on the application, so we are still before that 30-day date. We have also had the plan set out to 2 firms for bid on the actual construction project. We have not received an actual bid yet. We did get one question, I believe, on the type of stone that was going to be used in the construction from one of the potential bidders.
Has the building commissioner agreed to the design of the wall in the back?
Not one way or the other.
Okay.
And again, I want to emphasize, the building department has 30 days to respond
No,
to an
I understand.
application, and we're not there yet.
Yeah,
So.
no, I understand, just
Yeah.
asking.
So that's where we are. As I said before, there are some parts that we don't have control over. City has to approve of the design and issue the permit. I believe that the building commissioner might like to run the plan by the DPW and the city engineer, but that is of course up to the building commissioner to do. And then our receipt of bids and engagement of a firm to construct the project is of course somewhat but not completely under our control. To the extent it is, we've sent the plan out and asked for the bids to be returned.
Question, Counselor. The parking spaces 10 and 11, is that included in their plan?
10 and 11 is the buddy parking, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that included in?
No, they're existing, but I believe there's going to be resurfacing of those 2 spaces when the final coat is put on the parking lot. And whether that final coat happens this year or next year depends on timing of winter's arrival.
May I ask a question to that? Does 10 and 11 go to one specific unit?
Yes.
Unit B1.
And that was one of the conditions of the special permit.
Yes, it was.
I'm just going to forward through here.
I have.
That was
That's on the side.
condition 2. So condition 2 was the sign on spots 10 and 11, and that they be dedicated to a specific unit. The letter, I think on 8/19 was just indicating that there was parking there. And then we have a sign on order that's an aluminum sign. It's due, I believe, 10/10 to be delivered. We've put up the temporary signs you see right here, Buddy Park It for Unit B1 in the interim, and that's right next to the parking spaces as it goes next to the building. Okay. So our other conditions, because there were 3, 1 parking space dedicated to each apartment, and those shall be appropriately delineated. That, of course, can't be completed until the construction of the lot is completed, but it is in progress. And then condition 3 was about snow removal. You've been provided with a letter, and this was here last meeting, verifying that Candor Realty is contracted for snow removal. It's kind of an ongoing condition, and as I've said, I think what the board, it's not going to be satisfied or not satisfied. The board's going to keep an eye on whether it works, and if there's an issue, raise it to the permit holder.
Yep.
Is there a defined timeline as to snow removal after a storm? Is there?
So it's within 12 hours of the storm, assuming that we normally do passes in the middle of longer storms.
Another issue that was raised by this board was compliance with building department inspections.
Yes.
There had been 1 temporary certificate of occupancy issued on this building, and of course, the final certificate of occupancy cannot be issued until all the special permit conditions have been fulfilled, which is again dependent on the parking lot. Since the last meeting on September 4th, the permit holder applied for a temporary certificate of occupancy for the entire building. And on September 11th, applied for the certificates of inspection relative to the units because they are rental units. Again, checking in with the building department this afternoon, that had not moved forward yet because the computer system had not assigned it to a specific person to review. Ms. Gardner has taken care of that at this point in time. There is a request for 1 piece of paper called a construction control document. And I believe that there is a little bit of a dispute whether or not that is obligated to be produced in this particular instance, but that is a building code dispute, not this dispute. And I will state right now that without further investigation, I am not the person qualified to resolve that dispute. I do the zoning code, not so much the building code. So I'm trying to stay within my wheelhouse. And again, the building permit for the wall was applied for on September 9th. And so we've taken the next step once we got the plan. And we need the city to move forward, and it of course needs the time to be able to do so. The last thing the board had asked was about a potential emergency snow parking plan. So the issue is, once we begin construction, unless we get to the point where we have at least a compacted gravel and stone dust surface, the parking lot's not going to be usable. So if we start construction and winter intervenes, what are we going to do for the residents? That's something that, it's not an easy answer to, I'm going to say right now. This is a visual of the location, which is the blue point, and then various public parking areas in the city. And and this was, I think, one of the issues that prior requests to modify All the public parking spaces or garages are at least a quarter of a mile, because you can't go down the hill, you have to go around and over.
Yep.
The Westland Street parking lot is the closest one. We do have the Wakefield Commons right here on the right-hand side of that. If we were able to reach an arrangement with the owners of that structure for some temporary parking.
Has anyone addressed that with them at this point?
We reached out to them prior, but we haven't reached out to them recently.
Okay. And then the next closest parking lot is really going to be down in the Parker Street area. The West Street parking lot is not a nearby parking lot.
No, it's not.
The other thought under discussion is whether the police department could be requested to relieve the residents from the ban on parking during a snow emergency, because it is, of course, just during a snow emergency, not all winter now. And I don't know the answer to that question, but there's not a lot of great options here.
Yes.
I can only say at this point, because we don't know when construction will begin, that the thought I raised to this board before still applies. When we reach that point, should we begin construction, or should we wait until the winter is over?
It certainly
and I
puts a
don't
lot
yet
of
know the
pressure
answer
on
to
this if you do.
Yeah,
That's-
if there's no better answer than I have yet been able to find on the snow parking, it becomes a bigger question. And of course, the later we get into the year, the bigger question.
Yes.
So, not something the board needs to resolve today, not something that we can resolve without further information.
We just want to make sure that the focus stays on that, because that's clearly been the issue, one of the big issues all along.
I believe right now there is one resident that parks a car.
Yeah, there's not many cars in the residence. We're looking at some of the surrounding properties we have on Washington Street, Pine Street, and Sherman Street, which I know aren't close to the property, but there's a chance that we have a couple of extra spots that could be allotted during snow emergencies.
I mean, I remember we looked at that once before, and the issue is really during a snowstorm, walking up that Washington Street hill or down. You know,
It's a tough hill. Yeah.
it would be a tough go, and if the sidewalks aren't cleared or the roads, I mean, pedestrian walking would be very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. And those are quarter of a mile away, so it's hard to find something much closer than that.
Yeah.
As far as I know, Wakefield Commons is the only reasonable alternative within a reasonable walking distance.
Seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, and that, of course, is dependent upon the private owner coming to an agreement.
The underneath of that parking garage, I thought was public parking, because if you go under there, there's a sign
Mhm.
about being able to go under, to stay under there. I thought the top was private and down below was public parking.
Is that this
Where the parking garage is,
Where Lydell Street is, yeah.
I think that's that one, which is just past Wakefield Commons. The Google Maps walking measurement is 0.2 miles. So, and that is, if there's no other alternative and that's available as public parking, certainly something that we can provide for any resident that does park a vehicle.
Yeah. Thing is, every time I've gone by that thing, it's full. So,
A lot of the residents in the downtown kind of use it as permanent
yeah,
parking.
they do.
So unless there are other questions, I think that's all I have to present for the update today.
Oh, that's good. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, will you be available for the next meeting for an update?
I am not available at the next meeting, as I had said at the last meeting, because I will be away If you did remote, I could do remote, but I think the plan would be to issue a written.
Yeah, no, that's, a written one would be fine, just at this point.
Should we plan for Mr. Bombachi to appear at the next meeting?
October.
By then, we would have a number of the updates on the.
Yeah, I think it would be useful, and I think the primary thing is you at least update us on the permits and those type of things and the progress on the wall. But obviously, the big issue is gonna be the progress on the parking. Is that takes either puts a lot of pressure on you or takes a lot off if you have the right answer.
Great.
All right, thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Okay. The next case before the board is that of 2024-0901 for variance for Donald S. Foster, 0 Talcott Avenue, relief from side setback. Mr. Foster, our agent.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome, new members, Richard. Welcome to the board. I believe the first one you started off was a setback for the side, a variance for the side setbacks at 0 Talcott. Is that correct? I have two issues in front of the.
Yeah, it's the side setback.
Okay.
That's the first one.
That's what I thought I heard you say, so. And then followed up on the variance. Okay. I know we spoke before, at the time we were looking more for a finding as part of the determination, and hoping to find it as a grandfathered lot. 0 Talcott is a residential neighborhood, but with kind of a broad stroke of the pen back in the 1970s and early 1980s. It was zoned industrial 2, even though all the houses, as you see further in the packet, are residential houses, single-family residential houses. For that reason, because the zoning changed, it was, I believe, the finding of the board that it was not considered a grandfathered lot, and that the zoning change basically excluded it from being grandfathered without getting further down the road of that way and getting, attorneys and stuff like that. We decided to approach it as a variance. So basically that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to build a 30-foot wide by 29-foot cape driveway in front. It is a 50-foot lot. There is a picture of the houses in the neighborhood where you can see they're all single-family residential, as well as the neighborhood plan that kind of identifies where the houses are. There are other houses with similar variances in that neighborhood. I have done other work before, certainly on tight lots. I've done some in Templeton, I've done some in Leominster, 50-foot, the ability to work no problem without going over the neighbor's property. In the past, there was existing fences or shrubs on either side, and it really wasn't an issue. I can comfortably build on that. I believe the house will, add value to the neighborhood. Since the first one I did, actually up in Templeton, I've certainly improved on aesthetics a little bit, but certainly improved also the ability to stay within that zoning. So I don't issue as a concern of having to intrude on the neighbor's property or build something that's not like to the neighborhood that's existing. In the plan, like I said, you can see the house and whatnot. There is a building plan of the house that I was looking to build, but I also brought a larger copy with me this evening, as it's kind of hard to see that one. If you'd like to see it, I could.
Now, the print that I see that shows 7-foot side setback on one side
7-foot side back on the
and
left
13
side.
on the other,
Yeah, and for the sake of that,
Because of the stairs.
the stairs.
because of the stairs, and I figured that I'd also kick it over, there's a telephone pole on that left side, so really the right side is where the driveway would need to be.
Yeah.
So I'd basically put it in front, it'll still be centered in front of the house, and I'm not planning on doing an overly deep driveway, just enough to get it off town property, allow for a couple of cars parking. I'm not looking for a variance in the front setback, just the side.
So where the stairs are, that's gonna be the main entrance into the house?
Sorry, let me look at, so there's side stairs and front stairs. As code, I'm required to have two sets of stairs, both a front and a side entry. Well, it doesn't have to be front and side, but two sets of stairs.
So is on this particular print, you're not showing the front stairs.
There is a set, but they probably don't show up on that because they don't come into a variance or anything like that. Maybe they're just not noted on the plan.
Right.
But there would be a set of stairs as well in the front. I can show you on the plan where they'd be, but because there's no variance that way, maybe I didn't have the in there in the mind.
Okay.
Would that be considered in what we're looking at is this setback? So if he comes out 4 feet, then the front setback, no?
4 feet less than 31.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah,
So
so it's
he would be-
27. So that's why I was asking, I would like to see the amount of infringement the stairs are gonna have on that front setback.
On the front setback, it's pushed back far enough I allowed for the stairs. When we were there over the previous,
All right, so you're saying that 31.2 includes the stairs?
it does, yeah. And if need be, I can set that back further. I've got plenty of depth to kick it back. I have no issues whatsoever with this front setback or a front or rear setback on this particular lot.
Okay.
So if need be, to adjust the stairs, I could.
May I?
Oh, absolutely.
I think the big question first and foremost is, what is the status of this lot? Is this a grandfathered lot?
Well, the board, we have discussed that in the past. I had felt that it should be, and I had quoted some things from the state basically saying that even though zoning changes that come after the fact don't apply to what was built for residential, the board felt differently. I think the city solicitor offered an opinion, maybe that was different than one I had previously pointed on, and this is just the route that the board had
The
decided
board
to go with me.
rejected the finding. That's why this is a use variance, because it still remains industrial,
Well,
so.
I think it's prudent to establish whether or not this is a grandfathered lot, because a variance for a side yard setback, the lot has to meet a requirement, and obviously it's an undersized lot.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I said, obviously this is an undersized lot, it doesn't meet our current.
Absolutely, under
frontage area
current
requirements.
zoning it is, yes.
So has anybody established whether or not this is
Yeah,
theoretically a protected lot from zoning increases of frontage and area?
so I had felt that it was, we've been here 4 or 5 times in the past when I was going for finding, and the board decided that they did not feel comfortable.
The board rejected the finding of a grandfathered lot.
Then he doesn't have a lot. If you said it was rejected that it's not a grandfathered lot.
It's not a grandfathered lot
It's under the current zoning.
he was trying to get the fact that a grandfathered lot was not, industrial zoning didn't apply because zoning didn't come in until 1970s. These two lots were under the same ownership since 1920 something.
Yeah, the early 1920s, yeah.
Christine?
Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to bring to attention, and I don't even know if it falls within this, but the new Housing Act that passed at the beginning of September eliminated the concept of merger for lots for grandfathered lots that were at least 10,000 square feet in area and 75 feet of frontage. I don't know if that applies, I just wanted to.
Well, this is
offer
50
that.
feet of frontage,
This
not
is 50
75.
and 75, so it would meet
That's
it at the state level for what's an allowable lot for it to
So,
have been
you-
So
grandfathered.
anyway, let me complete the bottom line was, it was rejected as, in the finding that it was a grandfathered lot. And therefore, it was suggested that if he wanted to do anything, he'd have to come in for a use variance to build a substandard lot in an industrial area. that's what we're facing right now. He wants, it is a lot, that was determined. He had the deeds and under the same ownership for
Almost 100
since
years.
1920s.
Yeah,
Obviously pre-zoning, because zoning didn't come in until 73.
yeah.
So that was the debate that raged for a while. And then, now it was turned back to him with the instructions that if he wanted to build there, he'd have to come in with use variances. And that's why he's here.
Yeah, the second issue, and that's why I was clarifying when I first got up here. The other issue that I have in front of the board is a use variance for this lot, because it's currently zoned, even though it's in a residential neighborhood. Back when they did the zoning, I feel like they kind of took a broad brush and went down that area and said that we're gonna make it industrial too. I understand probably what it was, just a generality, but it was missed in this was really that then changed the zoning. It would have been a grandfathered lot, it still remained in a residential neighborhood, but with that, they changed it to industrial too. And then based on that, the board viewed that it was no longer grandfathered, even though they deemed it a lot, it did not consider it to be, fall under the statutes of a grandfathered lot for the
And
conditions of
Attorney
Massachusetts.
Flick had basically referred it back to a use variance, is where he put it.
And this is the last lot of this area, and all the other lots are houses, there's no.
Oh, I went down
Yeah,
there.
okay.
I drove by
Same
it.
here.
All right.
But I would keep circling back to this because I need clarity to understand in my head what the status of the lot is. And I've heard that this was owned in common ownership with another lot?
No,
No.
this was
Oh.
always owned,
No.
always owned just
It's
just
always
as-
owned by the same, it just happened to be two separate lots. Correct me if I'm wrong.
What do you mean, two
Well-
separate lots?
One lot, but back in the 1920s, the lots were 25-foot parcels, if you look at the old, and they'd sell them then. I think I actually might even have a copy of it in there. I don't know if I included it or not. But it's always been 50 feet, 7,500 square foot since its creation back in 1920s.
But
They've
one-
never owned any of the adjoining property.
Yes.
The current owners have not.
Okay, so the common ownership status is out the window, we don't care about that.
Well, as far as if it was grandfathered, it wasn't like it was
Right,
broken off from
it
another
was
lot.
never, since zoning 1970, it wasn't in ownership with any of the surrounding lots.
No,
Okay, so that
No.
part's gone. But then it gets down into, you're saying that Attorney Flynn,
Flick,
that's our,
that's our city solicitor.
yeah.
and he's advised what?
He advised the client and our building commissioner stated that he should, if he wanted to build on those lots, he would have to come in for these
Okay,
variances.
so I understand the aspect of the use variance, and I don't see an issue with the use, I'm just questioning the status of the lot.
I guess I don't understand the
Yeah, I'm
question on the
sorry.
status.
Well, is it a grandfather lot? It doesn't meet our frontage area requirement. So
That's why
would he not also need a variance for frontage and area because he doesn't meet frontage and area? Now, frontage requirement is 100 feet, he's got 50.
understand, my understanding is that's what the use variance was supposed to address.
That's what the use variance, yeah. The use
Was
variance is
the lot
basically,
sizes, so that,
so how it was, so,
I don't want to state
I'm
the
sorry.
case for you. but-
yeah, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, and I definitely did, I apologize. The way it was described to me was that we first go for a use variance, and once we determined that we could use it as residential, then it's now in a residential, and it was required that I met the conditions of what it would have been for a grandfathered lot. So in other words, I can maintain the front, they're gonna give it to me as a lot,
Sure.
but it doesn't meet just doesn't meet the side setbacks, and that's why I needed the variance for that.
So this is for a lot that's in residential zoning, which this is not.
Right, I understand. That was the confusion all along, is how all these things apply. And that's why the city's looking to potentially rezone that area. But that's not before this board. So therefore, the use variance is what we have to deal with.
Do we have a copy of Attorney Flick's?
No, I don't do,
I'm wondering if he added any of that on the packets,
not
because
that I
the
saw.
finding packet that from the beginning to the end, that was all closed and done, and then he applied for the use variance,
Mhm.
and he made those packets himself.
So I didn't put Attorney Flex, because in this case, I didn't
It's-
feel like it carried
it's-
over, so I should have,
Yeah.
whether or not I could have, I.
What I was hoping to avoid is the overlap of the past cases into this one.
Yeah.
This one, in my view, is strictly, we have a use variance, and I suspect what we should have started with was the use variance before we got into the setbacks.
Yeah.
And maybe we ought to shift over to that. Let's deal with that and then see if we can, that clears up your questions.
Which is his other,
Packet,
That's the other packet.
which it appears that most of the information is exactly the same.
You gotta
Unfortunately, I
find
don't
pretty
have
much first to the front page, it's almost all the same.
It is, yeah.
So, let me call up that case. Okay, now we'll address the, might as well address them simultaneously. Case number 2024-09-02, which is the use variance to build a single-family house in that area.
Yep.
So why don't we start with that one?
Would you like me to?
Yeah, might
Go
as well
for it,
present,
okay.
yeah, let's shift hats and go to
Yep, yep,
that.
perfect, yep. So, yes, as we're kind of at, it sounds kind of a little redundant, but yeah, so basically I'm seeking a use variance, based on, considering that we just spoke about, the neighborhood being changed, back in the 70s from what was residential, so surrounded by residential houses, to industrial too. Obviously this parcel of land is not an industrial area, so I'm hoping to seek a use variance to build a single-family house, again, 30 by 29, on the lot in question. All of the buildings on Talcott are single families. And that's, I guess, where we're at. I don't know if you have further questions. I feel like I'm repeating myself, I apologize, but yeah.
All right, what I would suggest if you take the time to address the three major issues on a variance around the shape, topography of the lots, and so on.
Now, I'm sorry,
So could you take a few minutes to walk us through the three criteria on a variance? I think you addressed it somewhere in your package.
yeah, I did.
I'd like you to share that with everyone.
So the first part of it being is a little enforcement of the provisions of this code would involve substantial hardship, financial or otherwise. The petitioner, the appellant, owing to circumstances related to the soil conditions, shape, topography, such land structures, especially affecting such land or structures, but not affecting generally the zoning district which it is located. Stanley and Margaret Lesko, I always say the name wrong, I apologize, have owned and paid taxes on the land in question going back decades with the intent to sell it as a buildable lot. Zoning changes to industrial 2 do not have any practical application to this parcel. Without the variance, they would be severely impacted financially by the land's decreased value, in addition to the fact that they have paid taxes on the residential 1, as it shows on the assessor's map, for going back again decades. 2, desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or creating or aggravating a safety hazard. No public good would be harmed in the creation of a single-family home on the lot in question, as the neighborhood is exclusively full of other single-family dwellings. No safety hazard would occur, as the lot would be kept clean and, maintained.
Okay.
Desirable relief may be granted without nullifying the substantial derogatory from the intent or purpose of this code, but not otherwise. The purpose of this code is intended to create residential homes from being constructed in industrial areas. However, in this case, it is clearly a residential neighborhood. A single-family home would be much more fitting than any industrial 2 applications for this location.
Okay.
2024.
What the assessor has shown as residential,
I think so.
Yeah,
the zoning
It's
map,
residential.
zoning map don't show that. it's
Trumps
still-
it.
Yeah.
yeah, it does. Yeah. All right. Board members have any questions on the use variance?
Just on the use, right?
Just on the use, then we'll get back to the other.
The only comment I have is that I did go down the street and just as a observation, it would be hard pressed to put a business in there. Everything surrounding it is residential housing.
Anything else before I open it up?
Well, I would agree with that, that it is clearly a residential street. No one would ever put anything on there that would be industrial.
Right.
I guess, again, still where I'm still struggling is, what is the true status of the lot? We don't have an opinion that states that this would really be a protected lot from increase of frontage and area. And if that is the true case, then I believe they would need a frontage variance as well as an area variance to go along with everything else that they're asking for.
I understand, and I think we can deal with that on the second portion, because that's where we're dealing with setbacks and lot sizing. I'd like to at least resolve the use. Are we willing to allow the residential use in that area? And then we can come back and talk about how we resolve this issue, because we may have to take that back to our city solicitor again to get some clarity. But let's at least see if we can try to deal with one of them.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to open it up to anyone in the city that would like to address or comment about this issue. A representative of the city? No, okay. Any abutters to the property who'd like to speak in opposition to? Any abutters to the property? Okay. You introduce yourself?
My name's Greg Turgis. I live at 546 West Broadway, right up against the property. And I've addressed this issue before. I feel the lot is too small. It's like trying to put a round peg in a square hole. It's very small, very narrow, and it's right up against the property with mine and my neighbors that live at 20 Telcott Ave. I understand that the city codes has changed, but in 100 years of that property being there, being owned by one person, no one has ever tried to build there. And why is that? Because it is a small lot, a very small lot. And, he's talking about 50-foot frontage and all this. It's so small, it's not even enough room for a family in there. If someone buys this and has kids, where are they gonna play? Out on the street? I just feel that this lot is too narrow for any kind of house, whether it be a high-rise or a cape. I've seen capes, I've been in construction myself. Worked on a big dig, I know what construction looks like. And this is just way too small for a house, a single-family house.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other abutters that would like to speak in opposition to? Any other abutters in opposition? Any abutters that would like to speak in favor of? Any abutters like to speak in favor of? Any interested parties that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition? Okay, thank you. All right, I'd like to suggest that we continue this until the next meeting, so we'd have time to address some of the open issues and questions that we have. But again, I'd hear a motion,
I'm sorry, was that for the use variance?
yes, for the use variance. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
Do I hear a second?
Continue next meeting for the use variance to answer questions.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Okay, we're gonna leave this, we're not gonna close the meeting, we're gonna leave it open, and we'll move it to the next session.
Okay.
As a continuance.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Now, let's discuss the next one. And I'm thinking that this, because of the questions raised and the lack of clarity on the status of the lot, it sounds like we need to confer with not only the building commissioner, but also the city solicitor, again, to get a more definitive statement as to the status of this lot. And again, I would move that we, at the same time, we move the second variance and continue that to the next meeting also.
For clarification on that, is that something that you want me to amend, this, basically amend this application for the variance as far as to include the lot
frontage?
sizes, or is that gonna
Oh,
be?
I absolutely would if I were you.
Okay. I didn't know if that was done on your side, I just was a procedural
Yeah.
thing, I wasn't sure, as if you.
I mean, it's a fair question. I mean, it's clearly a substandard lot, and that should be part of, or addressed as part of the setbacks and/or the usage.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure where we put it, but it'll definitely need some clarity, and I'll address that afterwards.
Okay, I guess I'm questioning is, so we don't have to, I don't wanna make sure that I come prepared to the next meeting. Do you want me to include it just as simple, broad terminology as the substandard nature of the lot, to include frontage and square footage? Or,
I would, just,
okay, that's,
the fact that it's, you're required to have, I think it's a set 100 feet, and that, actually, it's industrial, so there really is no frontage. I mean, again, I'll get some clarity.
the way it was originally explained to me, I guess, is that if I had the use variance, then it was residential, and then it would have been considered grandfathered, and then it
Well,
was
that's
really
why
just
I
a
would-
side setback issue.
I would go with the fact that it's compared to a residential lot and substandard to a residential lot,
Okay.
and then we'll deal with that from there.
Approach it from that angle.
Okay?
So you need a motion?
I do. I need a motion to continue this case till the next
Just for
meeting.
clarity, Mr. Chairman, so what the applicant's been looking at is the 50-foot frontage and having at least 7,400 square feet for the industrial too. So what we're looking at, we're trying to clarify is, are we using those criteria or the criteria for the residential
Residential.
one?
That's what I need to clarify, or get clarified by our attorney, because he's the one that suggested that this lot was not grandfathered. Because if it was grandfathered, all these are off the table. And the setbacks would be allowed of whatever they were in 1920s. That's not true now.
Okay.
So by the nature that they said it was no longer grandfathered, or wasn't grandfathered, it opens up a whole bunch of questions.
Which would be residential one,
Yes,
and he would not have the appropriate setbacks and frontage.
right. Well, it's not the width. the width and the frontage, yeah.
I just want clarification what we're
Yes.
looking.
Okay,
Make a motion to continue the setbacks, variance till next meeting.
Here a second.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor of moving it to the next meeting, say
Aye.
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 Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Not to make you dig in an old file, but could I read Attorney Flick's?
Could you send that out to all of us again?
Thank you.
Because it was addressed at the meeting, but I don't think we ever got copies of it.
Okay.
Okay. The next meeting, case before us is case number 2024-0903, special permit, BCF investment for 75 Oak Street, to change a two-family to a three-family dwelling. BCF Investments, is that Attorney Tree?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Mr. Cornett. I'm going to get myself back up in here.
Are we turned down, Mariella?
They probably went to sleep.
All right. Good evening, board members. Mr. Boaventura Furtado is with me. He is the member of BCF Investments, owner of the property. With him is his wife, Norma Furtado. Together, they have renovated this structure, which is currently in use as a two-family dwelling. And both units are presently leased, and we can explore what that means if it becomes relevant. So the board has seen this property once before in 2021. And at that point in time, this was a vacant and abandoned building. And so this is prior to the renovations. It was boarded up. At that point in time, the issue as now was the parking. The property is serviced by one long driveway on the left-hand side, which you can see to the left in the picture up here. It fits 3 vehicles. And there was a proposal without a plan to add additional parking on the right-hand side. With the permission of the board, that petition was withdrawn without prejudice, or granted leave to withdraw without prejudice. And since then, the building department did grant Mr. Furtado permission to renovate the structure and to occupy the first 2 units as a two-family, which is allowed by right in the district. So that has been completed, and the property has been brought up to a bit of a higher standard there. The renovations on all 3 floors have been mostly completed. The 3rd floor, it does not contain a kitchen, so it does not contain cabinetry. There are no hooked up appliances, although there are the rough-ins to do so in the future. Okay. And the only use it's being put to right now is some storage for Mr. Furtado and occasionally a little paperwork while he's there. So no one is occupying it. We are here to ask for the special permit for permission to occupy the 3rd unit as a 3-family. There is also a request relative to the parking in your materials, and we'll show a little bit later in the presentation the plan for 2 spaces on the right-hand side. where this is a change from one conforming use to another conforming use. And the first conforming use does not have adequate parking for that use. Under section 740 of the zoning ordinance, what is required is that the additional parking for the increased use be added, not that the entire property come up to full parking. So the difference here is there are 3 tandem spaces on the left-hand side for the first 2 units, which again, because it was existing, was adequate to issue the building permit, and Mr. Furtado, of course, has received his certificate of completion on the project. What we would be adding is 2 spaces, bringing us to a total of 5 rather than the normal 6. So that is a non-discretionary provision of the zoning ordinance. In other words, it's not maybe we'll let you do it, it's what is required. The discretionary part that we are also asking for is a modification to the dimensions. One of the 2 spaces is 17 feet in length instead of the required 18, so it's a 1 foot reduction. So that's the overview. Moving forward, this is a structure in the G3 zone, which does allow, as I said, 3-family by special permit. You will see in Exhibit F in your package, we did an analysis of the uses in this location. So that right there is Oak Street with the locust. The blue are 3-family dwellings. The red are multifamily 4 or more. The yellow are single-family dwellings. And I think the green are 2-family. So it is a mixed use, but definitely heavily multifamily, multi-unit in this area. Going up the right-hand side of Oak Street there are 6 almost identical triple-deckers that seem to all have been built in the same time. They all have the same lot size, they have the same frontage, and they all have the same parking problem, which is that there's pretty much the one tandem space on the side. Some of them do have room in the back to create a little bit more parking in the back. In Exhibit H, there's a plot plan showing the dimensions of the lot. And what I do want to show to you is how parking is laid out with the other multifamily dwellings. And I say multifamily, but 3 or more in this area. So we have 27, 29, and 69 Oak. You can see kind of the same parking layout there, long driveway on the side. And here we have 77, 79, and 75 Oak, again, all on that right-hand side. And what we're asking is really to return this property to the full traditional use that it had. Just to show a bit of what happened with the renovations, there is a large piece of granite behind this property. Before the renovations, it had been left filled with trash and garbage. The property owners cleaned that out now, so it is a little bit better space, or at least not a receptacle for trash. This is a bit of the interior finish on the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor is again the unoccupied floor. This is looking to the back of the apartment towards the kitchen area in future. And really my purpose here in showing you that in the kitchen area is, again, no cabinets, no appliances. It's not being currently used as a dwelling unit. This is a storage room accessed from the kitchen. Again, it is not being used as a dwelling unit. Bathroom. There is the bathroom fittings are installed. I'm not sure the shower is installed.
Yeah.
Shower is installed?
Yeah.
Okay. This is currently one of 2 bedrooms, and you can see some of the owner's storage boxes in there. And then this is the 2nd bedroom, and again, that's a little bit of a temporary desk set up in there. I have submitted a dialogue on the special permit criteria in general for the use as a 3-family. What I wanted to go to specifically was the parking relief. And here, I just want to point out again, the non-discretionary and the discretionary parking relief. For any change of use from conforming to conforming, we only need the additional number of spaces, that's 675, 720A. And then the zoning board may issue a special permit, so under special permit criteria, for relief from the parking regulations here from that 1 foot of relief from dimensions. And the criteria is that the lack of parking spaces will not create undue congestion or traffic hazards on or off the site. Exhibit E of the application is the long-awaited parking plan that is from Mackenzie Engineering. So as you can see on the right-hand side, and I'm just going to focus in on this a little bit right here, we have the 2 new parking spaces, and what we've done, trying to think about this issue of whether or not they're compliant, what can we do to alleviate any issue. They are set back at least 6 feet from the sideline. And then we have also, because they are quite close to the house, put a stop in the front of each parking space so that there's no further intrusion of the vehicle once it's parking. Again, the proposal with the 17-foot space would be to label it compact vehicle parking. I did get into a little bit, probably too much research on what was the average length of a vehicle. So average length of a car is 14.7 feet, 12 feet for the Chevy Spark, 20 feet for the Rolls-Royce Phantom, which will not be parked here. Average midsize SUV is 15.2 feet, and a full-size pickup truck averages 18.4 feet. So a pickup truck is not going to fit there. But there is the other space to the side where it will. And so, what I would propose is that if we label this compact car parking, it's going to adequately serve the needs of this particular dwelling and not add to the on-street parking burden. We did have, was there a question?
Yes. The question I would have is that how much frontage do you have in that property?
I will have to go back a little bit to the plot plan for that.
Yeah, let's put it this, it's well under 200 or
Oh, yes,
150.
it's 58, and
Yeah.
so there was a mention in the application about, do we need relief for a second access driveway?
You need curb cuts, and as you know, the requirements are 200 feet. And clearly you don't have that, so I would assume we'd be talking a variance at some point.
So the curb cut, and we need a curb cut. Is this a second access driveway? I don't think it's an access driveway, I think it's just parking spaces. But the curb cut, it's just a parking space.
Ooh, okay.
And if there's some clarification on the next zoning, right, maybe that's something to address.
Yeah.
But, so the criteria for a curb cut, and I think maybe it might be appropriate for me to do a second writing on this, since you've raised that particular issue.
Yeah.
You know, I think the relief for that belongs with DPW and not ZPA, but if in fact it does belong with ZBA, then that would be a modification of a pre-existing non-conforming structure for a different use. And I think that would be available by special permit rather than variance, which I always try to present before the board when we don't, so that we don't have to go for a variance.
Yes. I understand that we recently had a case up on Oak Street. It's very similar to this, so.
I think that was the gentleman who had a driveway and then the city put a sidewalk in front of it, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
he
I think
did.
I was here
Yeah,
for
yeah.
that one.
So now we need a curb cut.
I have a question, because I went by there this evening, and those 2 parking spaces, there's quite a hill there. What, to go up where you're gonna park. So what is the design so that the access is, the way it seems, is gonna be, I'll say, flat or straight, or are they planning to go up the hill? And if
There's-
so, how are you gonna take care of all the erosion if you go into the hill?
So it's going to have to go into the hill a bit, and it's not completely going to alleviate the slope that is there. There's slope. And I would say the slope, if I can go to, I have a picture of the proposed parking area. Just to show you there, the show is that the original driveway has been paved, so improved the property. All right.
That's where you would be going up, or the tree isn't there anymore.
It isn't there anymore. This was prior, and this is current. My assistant loves the fancy transitions, so. So we can see here the slope that you're talking about. There would be a retaining wall required, not a tall one, but a bit of a retaining wall off of the neighbor's property to ensure that there wasn't any settling in that direction that would affect the neighbor. But there would be, need to be a bit of a cut in here. They would not be completely flat. There would be some slope to them. And what I would say about that is that since we're adding some impervious area with the paving of those spots,
Okay.
that would kind of help the drainage away from the house as well, if there was a little bit of a slope.
So there'll be a definite slope in the parking spaces.
Correct.
And a retaining wall on 3 sides?
I believe to the right-hand side is what is currently in design. What you have is a parking plan, not a plan to show an engineered wall design. That is something that would take place further if the application is approved. So, all right. So again, looking at the impact on traffic and safety, what you see here is the view right, left, in front. If you were pulling out of the parking space onto Oak Street, the view is unobstructed. There's no, I think the tree that was there before renovations was the only big tree on the street on that side. So there's an unobstructed view either way. The sidewalk is of course visible and very adequate to pedestrian use on that street. Just like the driver has a clear point of view, so do the pedestrians coming in and out. And right here, what you see is the pedestrian point of view looking up and down at that proposed parking location.
Where is the property line on the front of the property? How far off the sidewalk?
The property line, I apologize, I'm gonna have to go back to my
Sorry.
plot plan again. So There is, I believe, about a 20-foot setback.
Yeah.
I would say that that dimension is not clearly in here on the plot plan. And if I go to the parking plan, we have 18.4 measured. And if you can see right there, the sidewalk is visible. So this is measured from the sidewalk forward, not back to the street.
So the
And that is
property
the-
line is the edge of the sidewalk?
Well, you know, the property
Right,
line is
I
to the
know.
middle of the street, but then the city is the right of way and
Oh,
all
yeah,
of
I know,
that.
that's why
Yeah.
I'm asking for the
Yeah.
clarity.
So,
Well, doing a scale off of this, it's under 20 feet from the property line to the face of the building.
18.4, off the parking plan from Mackenzie Engineering. But that is it's a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling. So it doesn't need to meet setbacks as long as it doesn't move its location.
Oh, I understand that part.
Oh, yeah, no, I just,
I was just wondering the depth of the parking space, which you're trying to reduce to 17 when we require 18.
Yeah.
Would the bumper of a car be spilling into the sidewalk because they're trying to squeeze too big of a vehicle because that's the only place that was available when I got home at midnight?
So if we had, using the measurements that I found, an 18.4-foot truck, it would spill a little bit. We have, and you can see that the sidewalk and the boundary line, it's a little bit diagonal, not a lot, but a little bit diagonal. And again, I think that's why there's a little bit of, little bit more than 18.4 feet by the time we get to the first parking space. We have it set 2 feet off of the house to the tire bump. And so it's gotten a little bit wider, but not a huge amount wider by the time we get from the upper to the lower part of the lot.
so the 17 feet that you're looking for the shorter one,
Mm-hmm.
that's taken from that bumper or that protective thing that you're building in?
No, it's the size of the space
It is.
as depicted on the plan.
So then we're assuming that they're gonna be able to park right up against that, whatever that retaining or protective measure you're putting in.
Mhm. And again, that's why a compact car space, it would suit it just fine. Your average SUV is 15.4 feet, just fine.
Yeah.
Truck won't fit. I did want to point out that we did have just a draft plan of alternative parking allowing for 3 spaces, but that would set the spaces closer to the neighbor. And of course, the shorter space would be much shorter. Well, you know, it would be closer to the left-hand side. I think 3 spaces would be a little much on this lot to add to it. 2 spaces is, of course, I think doable. If the board were willing to do so, it could also reduce the required number of spaces to 1, and then we could add only the 1 dimensionally compliant space. But that is not what we requested. We'd certainly, you know, find that acceptable, but I think the board thinks off-street parking is a little bit more important.
We also have the option of not doing a short one and do 2 longer ones, even though you're coming close to the property line.
Mhm. So we could do the tandem, or move the whole thing over close, that's what you meant, yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
not the
move whole
tandem.
thing over
The
closer.
tandem we looked at before the last time they were here, and it was
Mhm.
very, very tight in there.
Agreed. So that would simply move the spaces over closer, and then we'd be able to maybe get that full-size space in.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting, I'm just asking.
Mhm. I am happy to go through the special permit criteria, if you would like me to do so at this time. I think that's everything that I have on the PowerPoint display.
Okay, thank you.
So the first special permit criteria is that the proposal shall be suitably located in the neighborhood in which it is proposed and/or the entire city, and shall be compatible with neighborhood character, existing uses, and other uses permitted by right in the same district. So as we've set forth, this is a mixed-use neighborhood in that there are majority 3 or 4 family dwellings interspersed with some single and 2-family dwellings. On Oak Street between Way Street and Richmond Street, we've looked at the uses. There are 14 structures, 6 are 3 families, 2 are multifamilies, and 6 are single or 2 families. On Franklin Street, which is 1 street to the east, we have 6 multifamily dwellings and other multi-dwelling uses. Again, this is an existing property, we're just completing the use of all of the interior by this application. So it is harmonious with the neighborhood because it's existed there for quite a while. The proposal shall provide convenient and safe vehicular and pedestrian movement within the site and in relation to adjacent streets, property, and improvements. This is a 2-way street. The proposal provides for off-street parking without impeding pedestrian movement, and due to the nice line of visibility will not impede traffic. 3, the proposal shall provide adequate space for off-street parking, loading and unloading of vehicles and goods, products, materials, and equipment incidental to the normal operation or use. Again, I have gone through this just now fairly at length and have done so in writing. There are 3 tandem spaces existing for the bottom 2 units. We are proposing 2 spaces for the additional unit, which is going to be 2-bedroom. So not a 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom. Went on for quite a bit there.
Yep.
The proposal shall provide adequate and appropriate facilities and utilities for the proper operation of the proposed use and disposal of sewage, refuse, or other waste products, and methods of drainage of surface water. There's municipal water and sewer, and obviously waste removal at this property. There are no known drainage issues, but we did talk about the slope of the proposed spaces helping drainage go back where it belongs. The proposal shall not constitute a nuisance due to air and water pollution, erosion, flood, noise, etc. Again, this is going to be a residential dwelling. It should not produce any disturbance or use except as neighbors usually produce to each other. The proposal shall not be a substantial inconvenience or hazard to abutters, vehicles, or pedestrians. We've talked about pedestrian safety. Having removed the tree next to the neighbor, we were able to offset the spaces by the 6 feet there and would construct a supporting wall, retaining wall, as to not interfere with that neighbor's use of their own property. The proposal shall be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of this chapter, going back to the intent of the zoning code at section 110, to promote the general welfare of the city of Gardner, protect the health and safety, convenience, and general welfare of its inhabitants, to encourage the most appropriate use of land throughout the city, and to reduce the hazard from fire. So this is the most appropriate use of the land. It was the use of the land before it became vacant and abandoned, and we're restoring an existing building to full use. I will also say that if the 3rd floor were not permitted to be used as a dwelling and needed to remain vacant, that would encourage a danger from fire because it becomes much more open to trespassers who might use fire to warm themselves as a vacant unit. Number 8, the proposal shall not have a significant detrimental impact on city services, tax base, and employment. There would be a slight increase in the city tax base due to the increased revenue from the 3rd unit. There's some temporary work that happened during the renovation for local craftsmen. We have the potential for another person to be added to the public school system, but I'm not gonna be the person that stands here and says that it is detrimental to bring children into the city of Gardner. 9, the proposal is consistent with the city's community development plan or master plan. So from the community development plan, that calls upon the city to promote a variety of new housing in and near the downtown area while limiting new housing development in rural sections. We are, of course, close to the downtown area. Action items H26 and H27 also suggest that the city should facilitate the redevelopment of vacant lots and abandoned buildings and rehabilitate existing housing units. That is what Mr. Furtado has attempted to do. In addition to that, and sorry if I spoke out of turn earlier tonight, but just to bring up the new housing law, which has passed and will eventually affect all of our lives. The new housing law offers something called an accessory dwelling unit by right. And if the unit is half of the otherwise square footage or 900 square feet, whichever is less, then there must be an as of right accessory dwelling unit permit granted, no special permit. And that will come into effect in February. It's going to be something, as usual, imposed by Boston and carried out by the western half of the state. But consistent with that, a very clear policy goal coming at us from the state of increasing the amount of available housing units. That's what this does without increasing the footprint, without further construction. And I would ask that the special permit be allowed as indicative of that policy, which, by the way, will prohibit the city from requiring more than one parking space for a new ADU.
So, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Are you insinuating that this will be allowed by right as a two-family to add an ADU? I thought it was for a single-family dwelling could add a ADU.
I do not read, and we are awaiting further regulations from the Department of Community Housing and Development on this, but I have gone over for my own purposes this statute as how it's going to be implemented as well. The statute says single-family housing district. It does not say a single-family house. And so unless the regulations turn out otherwise, I do expect that one ADU, as long as it meets the dimensional requirements, which I'm not sure this will or not, but if not, it's close. One ADU will be allowed by right in any district where single-family residential dwellings are allowed.
So it continues on to no more than 900 square feet or no more than half the dwelling units, the primary dwelling unit.
Whichever is less.
Whichever is less.
Yes.
And one parking space.
So it's a two-family, so what do you call the primary, and how are you getting that this is no more than 900 or less than half?
The total square footage is 3,700 something square feet, so I think it's about 1,000 per floor, but we'd have to measure out to see how the square footage is allocated among those floors. Right now, before there are regulations issued by the state, based on my reading of the statute, I would say that the remainder of the structure, which is not being used for the ADU, would be considered the gross floor area. That was the basis of the calculation. Here, it's going to end up being 900 square feet because it's going to be the smaller of the two. This is not a pushback, hey, let us do this because we're going to allow it.
No, it was just a curiosity thing for me, because if you think it's going to be allowed by rights February 2nd, then why go for a special permit?
Because it may not, because I don't know if the unit measures like that, and because frankly we submitted the special permit application before the law was passed. So if the special permit is not granted, that may be an avenue that we look at. I'm really offering this to the board just as an expression of what the public policy is in the state, and that's to increase housing, and that's what the special permit application does.
Okay. All right, board, have any other questions?
Not at this time?
So I do have a slight question. So when was this three-family rented non-conforming? What prompted the non-conformity of this existing three-family?
So I'll go back to the dimensional, but I would say the implementation of zoning in 1973, I don't think that it's had adequate lot size since then.
So 1973, that was a non-conforming use?
It's been a non-conforming use, so it was built as a three-family,
Mm-hmm.
and it was built as a three-family prior to zoning.
Mm-hmm.
And that use continued through zoning. I believe we have notation of a fire approximately 10 years ago.
Oh, is that what happened? There was a fire?
There was a fire,
Okay,
and after the fire, the structure was no longer habitable.
okay,
And so the use ceased at that point in time and became an abandoned use.
okay.
And so that's why we need to seek the special permit here to resume the use, you know, whereas pre-existing non-conforming structure, so we don't have to meet dimensional requirements. But otherwise, we need the special permit to operate the use. Gardner does not permit you to simply apply to resume an abandoned use that has lost the protections of section 7.
So now, you proceed to rebuild it, right?
Renovate it, Mr. Hurtado renovated
So
it.
you renovated it, knowing that you could do a two-family, but you didn't want to incorporate the second and third floor together, just to one unit, so because you finished it all off, other than the kitchen.
Did.
So you move forward and, you bring up, well, if he doesn't get this, then it's gonna just sit there vacant, and someone's gonna go and light a fire because they wanna stay warm.
Mhm.
But it's clearly 100% done other than the kitchen.
So I just want to, and I've shown the pictures because I want to emphasize this is not being used as a dwelling unit. Mr. Furtado is not using this illegally. He's constructed it to be fitted out. But he has complied with the constraints of the building permit. And that's why we're here seeking permission.
So
But if we did
just for my
that-
knowledge, I'm gonna ask a lot of questions, so just bear with me. So the building department issued a building permit to make it into a two-family,
Correct.
and what was the status of the third floor? Because it's not being used for anything, it's a vacant unit.
They said allowed to live, but we cannot cook it. So no kitchen, no cabinets, no
So-
sink.
So were they considering the second and third floor one? Is there an internal stairway that connects those two together?
In the beginning it was he allowed me to all the electrical, plumber, everything to the floor.
Right, well, that's what I'm getting at, is how did you get that far with a building permit if it was not gonna be used as a three-family? So did the building department issue a permit that first floor is one unit, second and third floor is a unit? Is that how it became a two-family, or did they give you a permit that you can do a first floor, second floor, and the third floor, you go ahead and do it, but just let it sit empty?
So it's a building permit, and the certificate of completion is in your packet with the application. It's floor for kitchen and bathroom, all floors. 1, 2, 3 baseboard for all floors where it's needed. 1, 2, 3 put the doors in all 3 floors. 1, 2, 3 replace steps on the second floor on back, being done as a two-family. That's on the certificate of completion for the building permit. What I would say about the practicality of merging the second and third floors is that would create especially if we don't have a kitchen up there, would probably be a 6-7 bedroom unit. In my experience, those get used as lodging houses. And if the board wanted to invite that type of use into this district, which I'm not sure that it does, even if this owner does not do it, a future owner may. I think 2 dwelling units is a preferable use to that kind of large bedroom use.
So this is not our arena, but has he spoken to the building department about the requirements to make that a three-family, like a sprinkler system or anything? Has that been considered? It's not part of our decision-making, but that the building code, I'm a building official, so the building code's gonna kick in on you once you make that a three-family, is required that you're gonna have to sprinkle that whole building, most likely. So I don't know if you've given any consideration, again, it's not germane to our decision, but I'm just not sure if you're aware of that as well.
There was a point at which an exemption to the sprinkling was discussed, and I don't know if that would still apply. We've certainly had a lot of changes in the building code in the past few years, like the stretch energy code that affects us all. But the construction is completed on that end of it. I'm not sure, Mr. Furtado, that anybody asked for you to install a sprinkler.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Again, that's gonna be between him and the building official when that day comes, if it comes, so.
But it's good to know for somebody who is looking to renovate the building, it's a substantial cost,
Yeah.
Okay.
depending on the system.
Okay, anything else on the board? No, go ahead. Another question?
Well, it's not a question, but has anybody, city engineer, anybody chimed in on this additional parking? Do we have any feedback from the city officials? DPW, engineer, city engineer? They haven't, have they got a
Nothing in this packet.
So we
There's
haven't
nothing
submitted
here.
the request for the curb cut and would not do so unless and until the board.
Well, at some point, we're gonna have that discussion, because I don't feel comfortable
Mhm.
moving on this tonight until we have clarity around the curb cut. I don't want to have the board make a decision on this and then find out that we've got to come back after a curb cut.
Mhm.
And I think that's a very high probability. So I would suspect that we should move this or continue the case and then address this where we have an opportunity.
So, what we can do, and I'm trying to think of what the action can be short of having another plan for an engineered wall drafted, which I don't want to do again until we get permission and have.
No, I think it's a simple thing of just talking with the DPW and understanding, because that came back on us in another case, as you're aware of recently. So I just assume resolve everything all in one time. And I don't think it's an engineering issue, it's a question of what the city's gonna require.
Okay. So I would communicate with DPW, with engineering, on the issue of what is required in order to get the second curb cut and whether any relief is required from ZBA on that issue.
Yes.
And then, if they do affirm that we might need to modify the special permit application to ask for that additional relief as modification of use of pre-existing non-conforming structure.
Okay.
And I'll be happy again to look through the zoning ordinance and the regular ordinance and see, and put together a writing on that, as well as talking to DPW, excuse me, I keep seeing, you know, engineering on the issue. So, is there any other requests that the board can make of the applicant?
Not for me at this time.
No, but do you wanna take comments from the?
Oh, yeah, we're not done.
Okay.
We're not done.
Okay.
Okay.
Would it, I'm thinking about a little more about the actual design of those two spots and how much the elevation, et cetera, is
Needs to be
going
cut
to
down.
be adjusted for that, and where the actual retention walls will be, where the two cars are, because depending where it is, there's already a retention wall on the border.
There's one marked in a dark line right there.
Yeah, so, but I'd be curious about how much material you're gonna be moving or elevation to be able to put, because your pictures and being there in person, that
It's a pretty steep.
incline seemed a lot steeper.
So I think ideally, what you're gonna, I'd like to see a topo plan showing existing contours, proposed contours, retaining wall, what the height of that retaining wall is gonna be.
Yeah.
And then when you get into the curb cut, if you get that far, then you're also gonna have to modify that sidewalk, and they have to put the slopes for handicap, like accessibility on those walkways as well, right?
Is the question about the curb cuts, who performs the actual curb cuts?
The DP, well,
Oh, no.
yeah, DPW, no, call them that. Gardner.
So who's gonna pay for that?
The,
You pay for that, but the city does it.
so there would be a fee for the curb cut that
I
is.
think they can also do a third party too, whichever way they
Yeah,
choose.
they probably sub it out.
Well, they'll probably sub it out, but
Or
it's their
Or they
responsibility.
require him to hire someone that's on their list
Yeah,
of.
I
But
just,
they would be the driver of it, you know,
And
and
then
that's between those folks.
I would expect that maybe there would be an as-built plan required after the construction was completed.
Yes. Okay. Okay, anything else before I move on?
And that would be pavement, not just hot packed material, it'd be
Yes.
paved.
It would be paved just as the other driveway was paved.
Okay, any representatives of the city like to speak in favor or opposition to this? No?
No, the gentleman who was in charge of the permit itself was Rick Germano, Inspector Rick Germano. He's no longer working for the city of Gardner. So now, he was the last person who worked directly with him on that permit.
Okay, all right.
On the mandatory referral, did this not go to DPW, engineering, city engineering? Do we not get a feedback?
When I received the application, I did send memos, which is a copy of the application to every department, every head department, and they are included in there, and I did not receive anything.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, any abutters to the property would like to speak in opposition to? Could you give your name and address, please?
Hi, I'm Lenville Meserve, 78 Oak Street. I would like to, I'm not in favor, but with an asterisk. Currently, we have already a parking problem on Oak Street. The police have been to Oak Street 4 times in the last 2 months with regards to parking. The 3-family that was sold, one above me, has 8 to 10 cars there every night. On the corner of Richmond Street and Oak Street, that has been recently sold in the last year. I don't know for sure, I don't know the people, but there are regularly cars with the year little stickers like on a used lot. 8 to 10 vehicles there parking illegally on Richmond Street. I've lived there since 2016. Different periods of time, you know, sometimes there's less people in the multifamilies, sometimes there's more. I have issues with people encroaching on my driveway. Gardner has no provision to protect my driveway. I've had the police there with cars halfway parked in front of my driveway, but because I can wiggle out, there's nothing they can do, they won't tow it. So there has to be, if those other 2 are gonna be occupied, the one that this gentleman owns, and then the one that's still abandoned that they're still having issues with, where are the cars gonna go? You know, that you can't have that many more people on that street with vehicles. Those multifamilies that have driveways all on the side, that's good for 1 unit. You know, you're not gonna have multiple units trying to park 3 cars in there and then calling everybody, you know, can you move your car? You know, that's not a realistic situation. And that's pretty much what I have to say about it. If you protect my driveway so I can get in and out every day and get to work and not have to worry about, you know, jockeying around people, I'm okay with it. I don't know if that's a workable situation with those other parking spots
May I
added.
ask you a question?
Sure.
So are you to the left or to the right of this, or further up the street? Where are you in reference to this property?
I'm across the street.
Across the street?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. There's no parking on, I mean, as you know, there's no parking on that side of the street. So all the parking comes
So
on
you're
my
talking
side of the
about
street.
the on-street parking coming down at Oak Street?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, I get you.
What number is it again, please?
78?
70?
78 is where I live. Yeah.
So, would this be an improvement though, because we got 5 cars off the street, and not just 3 cars off the street? I'm just,
It's a little bit.
A little bit.
It's a little bit, you know.
Just
It's
asking
certainly
a
better
question.
than nothing, for sure. But, you know, like I said, without, you know, there's already a problem. There's already police coming to the street. The house above me, they had 2 cars out there for over 2 weeks. Flat tires, you know, not moving, and they got moved. So that's all you can, you know, see that stuff in the police log. But it's already an issue, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think that.
Could you introduce yourself, please?
You need, Nora, you need to come up here and hear.
Okay.
And state
My
your
name is
name.
Oma Furtado. I'm part of the BCF investment, and we try to develop more the city, and we are giving a solution, not a problem, because if we invite more people to live in our building, it's offered to spaces, it's not parking in front of our neighbors, increase the situation. We know the situation because it's difficult. If we started with this enough parking lot when we start the renovation, we are not here today. But we need to wait, find the solution, working with engineers, looking for the best option. We really accept the condition of the building inspector, say, okay, one floor, third floor with 1 family, second and third, okay, live in one common space. But now, really, this is the proposal to give options. Technical design it is not. We are invited. This is design it with the conditions, and it's not affect the other name. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other abutters to the properties like to speak in opposition to? Abutters would like to speak in opposition to? Any abutters that like to speak in favor of? And any abutters that like to speak in favor of? Any interested party that would like to speak? Okay, thank you. I'd like to hear a motion to continue this till the next meeting.
Motion to
Oh,
continue.
sorry, go ahead.
I will not be here at the next meeting because as I said, I'm away in October.
Want to continue it till December?
Or
November, I mean.
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Continue to November.
If the board extends, one of the cases, we do have the forms in one of those folders to be able to
That
fill
was
it
my
out
question.
and extend it.
Yeah, we'd be happy to sign the written extension to all of the.
So we're new one for Mr. Foster as well, because we extended Mr. Foster, so he needs to fill out the form as well, right?
Depends on when his application was,
He's applied for
a variance.
a variance, and he's applied for a
Variance twice.
use variance, and dimensional.
So it's 100 days, so again, I don't know when. I think what we typically do, we'd take a look at it, and we make the extension, but then we'd have to request it after we do the dates to figure it out. So Mary Ellen's gonna have to take a look at when the dates stand versus the next meeting.
Yes, but wouldn't it just be a good practice that anytime you extend someone, they just automatically
Well, we can
sign that?
talk, we can talk about any changes later
Procedures,
on
okay.
with the chairman.
With the chair. You want a chance right now.
Not, yeah, that's what, then, my point is, we're not talking about it tonight.
Gotcha,
All right, so
gotcha.
where are we now with this?
I'd like to move this to November. If the request is, do I hear a motion to move it to November?
Motion to move to November's meeting.
Seconded?
I will second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, board.
All right, thank you. Okay, I believe that's all there is
Thank
to
you. Thank you for
the
your
board
attention.
tonight. Is there any,
Thank you.
there's no minutes?
Table
Can't,
them?
with Ron's not, Ray's not here. He
Want
was
to table
on,
them?
so we'll have to table them to the next meeting. So,
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Been waiting to do that for an hour.